The recycled air tasted like ozone and stale metal. Alara pressed her cheek against the cold durasteel wall. It vibrated with the faint hum of the Cathar transport ship, a sound that had been her constant companion for weeks. Each hum was a tiny drumbeat of despair. The alien guards moved past her cell door, their heavy chitinous boots clicking on the grated floor. She could smell their musk, a sharp, earthy odor that made her stomach turn. They were tall, twice her height, with 4 eyes that swiveled independently. One, a hulking brute named Groth, paused. His upper right eye twitched, then his gaze, cold and unfeeling, settled on her. Alara closed her eyes, trying to make herself small, invisible. Her throat felt raw, tight from days of silence, from the fear that coiled in her gut. She could feel the dull ache in her wrists where the binding cuffs had rubbed her skin raw before they were removed. She had tried to escape once, that had ended with pain. Now she just survived minute by minute. Groth's raspy voice grated through the force field. "Still alive, human, surprising," he grunted, a sound like grinding stone. Then he moved on, his heavy steps fading down the corridor. Alara opened her eyes. Her cell was small, a bare cube of gray, a thin mat for sleeping, a sanitation unit, and nothing else. No viewports, no way to tell where they were going, just the constant hum, the stale air, and the crushing weight of her captivity. She wanted to scream. She wanted to rage. Instead, a tiny, forgotten melody bubbled up from deep within her. It was a lullaby her grandmother used to sing, a simple, wordless tune. Her voice was rusty, a low, hesitant hum at first. The tune was slow, mournful, a whisper against the cold, unfeeling walls. As the melody left her lips, something shifted. The hum of the ship, usually constant, wavered. It was subtle, barely noticeable. A high-pitched whine briefly cut through the deeper thrum, then settled back into its rhythm. Alara stopped humming, her breath catching. Had she imagined it? She waited, her heart thumping against her ribs. The ship's hum remained steady. She shook her head, of course, just her mind playing tricks. Despair was a powerful illusionist. She closed her eyes again, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to conserve warmth in the chill of the cell. The faint light panels above flickered, as they often did. A trick of the ship's ancient power grid, she assumed. But then the light panels didn't just flicker. They brightened ever so slightly, then dimmed in a slow, pulsing rhythm. It was almost like a breath. Alara lifted her head, her brow furrowed. That was new. She had seen flickers before, but never a pulse. She hummed the lullaby again, a little louder this time, her voice still rough but gaining confidence. The pulsing intensified. The low hum of the ship's engines deepened, a resonant thrum that vibrated through the floor beneath her. A soft, blue glow emanated from the corners of the cell, tracing lines on the durasteel walls she had never noticed before. They pulsed with the light. Alara stared, her mouth slightly agape. This was not a trick of her mind. This was real. A sharp, metallic clang echoed from the corridor. Groth and another guard, a smaller, quicker Cathar named Xyle, were coming back. Their boots clanked louder now. Alara quickly quieted her humming. The blue glow faded. The light panels returned to their normal, steady flicker. The ship's hum went back to its usual monotone. She pressed herself against the wall again, trying to look as passive and defeated as before. Groth paused outside her cell. "Did you hear that, Xyle?" he grunted, his upper eye twitching again. "A new hum," Xyle chirped, a higher-pitched sound than Groth's. "Perhaps the ship's ancient systems are finally failing. We should report it to Commander Vrak." Groth scoffed. "Nonsense, the relic holds, it always does. Just the ship settling after the jump." They moved on. Alara waited until their footsteps were gone. Her hands trembled slightly. The ship, it reacted to her voice. What did that mean? She tried another sound, a simple vocalization, a clear ah sound, nothing. She tried the lullaby again, softly. The blue lines reappeared faintly. The ship's hum deepened slightly, not as strong as before, but definitely there. A spark ignited within her. Not a trick, a connection, but how? She was just a human. Her people had only recently started reaching the distant stars. They were considered primitives by most galactic empires. The Cathar certainly thought so. This ship, ancient as it was, likely predated humanity's spaceflight by millennia. She spent the next cycle, what she guessed was an alien day, experimenting. She hummed the lullaby. The ship responded. She tried other songs, simple nursery rhymes, folk tunes from her childhood. They elicited only minor fleeting reactions. It was the lullaby, that specific sequence of tones and rhythms. The blue lines would pulse brighter, the hum would deepen. And sometimes, a faint, almost imperceptible shift in the ship's gravity field would occur. A slight lightness in her limbs that quickly vanished. It was like she was speaking to it, and it was listening, though its language was crude responses. The Cathar guards, specifically Commander Vrak, noticed the strange energy fluctuations. Vrak was a lean, scarred Cathar, his 4 eyes always scanning, missing nothing. He visited Alara's cell the next cycle. He stood very still outside the force field, his mandibles clicking softly. He didn't speak for a long moment. Alara felt his gaze, a cold, probing pressure. The energy readings from this section of the ship are anomalous, he stated, his voice a low, gravelly growl. They coincide with your presence here, human. Alara kept her face blank. She focused on steadying her breathing. I am a prisoner, Commander, she said, her voice hoarse from disuse. I have no control over this ship. Vrak's lower left eye twitched. We are aware of your limitations. But coincidence does not exist aboard a Cathar vessel. He turned and left, his chitinous armor scraping softly against the corridor walls. Alara felt a prickle of fear but also a thrill. They knew something was happening. They just didn't know what. This gave her an advantage. A tiny, fragile advantage, but an advantage nonetheless. She waited until the Cathar patrols had settled into their routine, until the ship was quiet save for its constant hum. Then she hummed the lullaby again, this time with a deeper sense of purpose. The blue lines on the walls pulsed intensely. The ship's hum resonated through her bones. She felt a lightness, a sense of being connected, as if she were part of the ship's very being. She focused her intent not on escape but on communication. Ship, she whispered, are you listening? The blue lines brightened, then dimmed quickly. A single, distinct beep echoed through her cell, a sound different from any she had heard before on the ship. It was precise, electronic. Alara gasped. It understood, or at least it was trying to respond. Her mind raced. What could she ask for? What could the ship provide even if it was responding? Safety? A way out? A weapon? No. Something more fundamental. Show me, she whispered, show me the way out. The blue lines pulsed rapidly. The ship's hum dropped several octaves, a deep guttural thrum that vibrated the very air around her. The floor beneath her feet began to gently tremble. The light panels above flickered wildly, then went completely dark for a split second before blazing back to life. But now they cast a soft green hue. The Cathar ship had always been bathed in a sterile white light. Green was new. A distant alarm blared through the ship, not the main alarm but a smaller, localized one. It sounded agitated. Cathar voices, sharp and angry, echoed from the corridor outside her cell. Emergency power fluctuations, Sector Gamma 9, a voice shouted. The human cell, Groth's voice full of alarm. Alara knew she had pushed too far, too fast. She stopped humming. The green light faded, the blue lines vanished. The regular white lights returned, though still flickering nervously. The ship's hum returned to normal. Her cell door, the force field, remained in place. Groth and Zyle were back in seconds, accompanied by 2 other guards. Their 4 eyes were wide with alarm. Groth pounded a heavy fist on the force field. What did you do, human? He snarled, spittle flying from his mandibles. Alara shrank back, trying to appear innocent and frightened. I did nothing, she whimpered, her voice shaky. The ship it changed colors. It felt strange. The guards checked their wrist-mounted comms. Readings are off the charts, Commander Vrak, Zyle chirped into his device. Massive energy spikes in Sector Gamma. Cell 507 is the epicenter, Vrak's voice crackled back, furious. Secure the prisoner, get me a maintenance team. I want that cell's power supply cut off. Find out what this human is doing. They tried to cut the power. Alara watched, a knot of fear and excitement in her stomach. They worked at a panel outside her cell, their tools making metallic scraping sounds. Sparks flew, but the force field did not flicker, it held. The green glow, faint but persistent, could still be seen outlining the cell's internal seams if one looked closely. The guards cursed in their guttural language. Alara knew it was her, or rather the ship, that was resisting. It was protecting her. A surge of warmth, of hope, washed over her. She was no longer completely helpless. For the next few cycles, the Cathar increased their surveillance. More guards patrolled her section. They installed new scanners outside her cell, projecting red beams across the floor. Alara knew she had to be careful. She resumed her humming, but only in short bursts, focusing on the lullaby, never pushing the ship too hard. She tried to discern what the ship was capable of. She hummed, focusing on the lock on her cell door. Nothing. She hummed, focusing on the light panels. They flickered with the blue lines but did not change color. She hummed, focusing on the air circulator. She thought she felt a faint change in the airflow, a brief moment of fresher air, but it was too subtle to be sure. It was like learning a new language, one word at a time, each response a fragile clue. One day, a new prisoner was brought to the adjacent cell. He was a small, furry alien with large, sad eyes and 4 delicate arms. He wore a simple, tattered tunic. He looked terrified. Alara watched as the Cathar guards roughly shoved him into his cell, then activated the force field. The new prisoner huddled in a corner, trembling. Alara felt a pang of empathy. She was not alone. She waited until the guards were gone. "Hello," she whispered, her voice still rough. The small alien flinched, then slowly looked up. His eyes, dark and wet, met hers. You are human," he chirped, his voice a frightened squeak. Alara nodded. "My name is Alara. What's yours?" "My name is Zephyr," he replied. "They caught me trying to smuggle medical supplies to a refugee camp. The Cathar consider it aiding rebellion." Alara frowned. "Rebellion against what?" "Their occupation of my homeworld Xylos," Zephyr whispered, his voice trembling. "They exploit our crystal mines." Alara's world, once focused solely on her own survival, began to expand. Zephyr was a gentle soul, clearly not a criminal. He was just trying to help his people. A new motivation began to stir within her, not just escape but something more. Maybe she could help him, maybe she could help others. She hummed the lullaby a little louder this time, her eyes fixed on Zephyr's cell. The blue lines appeared, tracing the edges of his cell's force field. The ship's hum deepened, a low, comforting vibration. Zephyr looked startled. What is that?" he whispered, his eyes wide. Alara put a finger to her lips. "Quiet, it's the ship." She focused her intent. "Open his door," she thought, directing her will at the force field. Nothing happened. The blue lines pulsed, but the force field held. Disappointment flared, then she pushed it down. She had to think differently. The ship responded to her voice, not her thoughts. She tried something new. She hummed the lullaby, then spoke. "Release Zephyr's cell, open his door." Her voice was a low murmur but clear. The blue lines intensified. The ship hummed deeply. Then a low, metallic groan echoed through the corridor. It sounded like old machinery protesting. The force field on Zephyr's cell flickered, then vanished. Zephyr stared, his mouth open. Alara gasped. It worked. The sudden silence from Zephyr's force field was deafening. He looked at her, then at his open cell. How did you do that?" he stammered. Alara smiled, a genuine smile for the first time in weeks. I think the ship likes me." A new alarm blared, louder this time, a frantic, piercing shriek. "Cell 308 open. Prisoner escape imminent. All units to Sector Gamma," Groth's voice roared through the comms. "It's the human, she's doing something to the ship." Alara knew they had very little time. "Zephyr, run, find a vent, a hiding place." "Anywhere?" Zephyr hesitated, his small body trembling. "But where will I go?" Alara pointed to a narrow maintenance hatch high on the wall opposite their cells, something she had just noticed. It had the same blue glow around its edges, faint but there. "There, the ship showed me, it's a maintenance shaft." "Go." Zephyr, propelled by a surge of fear and a glimmer of hope, scrambled out of his cell and darted towards the hatch. He fumbled with the latch, it was stuck. Alara hummed the lullaby, then whispered, "Open hatch 3 Delta 9. A soft click echoed from the hatch. Zephyr pulled it open and squeezed inside just as Groth and 3 other guards rounded the corner. Groth roared, his eyes blazing. "The human," she opened the cell, "lock her down." He lunged towards Alara's cell, pulling a heavy stun rod from his belt. Alara didn't hesitate. She hummed the lullaby, her voice filled with a desperate urgency. "Lock all doors in this corridor," the ship responded instantly. A loud clang echoed as the heavy durasteel blast doors at both ends of the corridor slammed shut, sealing Groth and his team in with her. The guards froze, looking around in confusion. "What in the name of the Corps did that?" Groth roared, looking at the closed doors. Alara smiled, a chilling, triumphant grin. "The ship," she said, her voice clear and strong. "It's listening to me now." Groth snarled, raising his stun rod. He aimed it at her force field. "You won't escape, human." Alara hummed again, a complex flowing melody she was instinctively improvising, trying to combine the lullaby with other tones. She focused on the stun rod. "Disable his weapon," she murmured. Nothing happened. The rod glowed with a dangerous blue energy. Alara frowned. She was trying to do too much. She needed to simplify. She needed to understand the ship's language better. The guards, recovering from their surprise, began to pound on the blast doors. "Open these doors," they shouted into their comms. "The human is somehow manipulating the ship," Commander Vrak's voice crackled back, furious. "Impossible. The ship's systems are ancient, inert, it cannot be," but the doors remained locked. Alara knew she had bought herself time, but not freedom. She was still trapped in her cell. She used the quiet moments to experiment more. She discovered that the ship responded best to specific vocal frequencies and rhythms, not just the lullaby, but that tune seemed to be a master key. She learned that repeating a command or combining it with the lullaby amplified its effect. She tried to open her own cell door. She hummed the lullaby, then with conviction, "Open my cell." Cell 507. Open, the blue lines on her cell intensified, pulsing like a desperate heartbeat. The ship's hum vibrated the floor, shaking her entire body. A grinding metallic groan echoed from the door mechanisms, louder than before. But the force field did not disappear. It merely flickered briefly, tantalizingly. It wasn't enough. The ship clearly still had limitations. Maybe it couldn't directly override Cathar protocols for prisoner containment, or perhaps the Cathar had installed an independent power source for the cells. She needed more power, more understanding. She looked at the blue lines, following their intricate patterns on the walls. They seemed to trace circuit pathways, energy conduits. A thought sparked in her mind. What if the ship wasn't just responding to her voice but recognizing her? What if these blue lines were more than just light? She hummed the lullaby, focusing her intent on understanding the blue patterns. Ship, show me your control. Show me your core. The blue lines pulsed, then extended, weaving a shimmering three-dimensional map in the air above her. It was a holographic projection, faint but clearly there. It showed the layout of her cell, the corridor, and beyond. It even showed the guards, represented by small, red glowing dots still trapped in the corridor. And in the center of the ship's projection, a larger, pulsing blue sphere deeper within the ship seemed to glow. The core, Alara whispered. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and exhilaration. She wasn't just talking to a machine, she was talking to something truly ancient, something powerful. This ancient ship, she realized, was likely not Cathar. The Cathar would never have built something so elegant, so responsive. It was a relic probably found and repurposed by them. Could it be human? No, that was impossible. Humanity was too young. But what if it was a precursor vessel, and humans had some forgotten, innate connection to its technology? A link that the Cathar, with their brutal, direct approach to technology, could never understand. The blue projection flickered and faded as the Cathar outside her cell started pounding on the blast doors with renewed vigor, calling for more heavy-duty equipment. Commander Vrak, now truly agitated, was demanding updates. "Are those doors open yet?" he barked. "No, Commander, the locking mechanism is somehow fused. We need cutting charges," Groth shouted back. "And what about the human? Is she contained?" Vrak demanded. "She's still in her cell, Commander, but she's playing with the lights again," Zyle chirped, clearly terrified. Alara chuckled softly. "Playing with the lights." She liked that. She decided to try something bolder. She hummed the lullaby, a long, sustained note. Then she focused on the holographic projection she had seen, on the blue sphere representing the core. "Ship, reroute power to my cell, bypass Cathar security, full access." This was a gamble. It was pushing the ship to defy its current masters directly. The blue lines inside her cell pulsed violently, a rapid, frantic rhythm. The hum of the ship rose in pitch, a high, protesting whine that grated on her ears. Then with a deafening crack, the force field on her cell door flickered and died. A rush of cold, alien air hit her face. The door was open. Alara stared at the open doorway, her breath catching in her throat. Freedom, real freedom. The Cathar were still trapped in the corridor, pounding on the blast doors. They hadn't seen her door open. Not yet. She had to move. Now, she slipped out of her cell, her bare feet silent on the grated floor. The blue lines still pulsed faintly on the walls, a guiding light. She needed to find that core. She needed to take full control of the ship. She moved silently down the corridor, keeping to the shadows. She passed the trapped Cathar, who were still frantically trying to break through the blast doors. One of them, a smaller Cathar named Drix, who often delivered her food, glanced back, his eyes widening. He saw her. His mouth opened to shout. Alara reacted instinctively. She hummed the lullaby, a quick, sharp burst. "Silence him," the blue lines on the wall closest to Drix pulsed. Drix's mandibles clamped shut. He blinked, confused, then shook his head as if clearing his ears. He turned back to the door, muttering. The ship hadn't hurt him. It had just silenced his vocal cords briefly. It seemed the ship was intelligent enough to interpret her intent, not just her words. That was a game changer. She continued down the corridor, guided by the faint blue lines. They led her through a labyrinth of dark service tunnels, past humming conduits and dripping pipes. The air grew colder, the hum of the ship's engines more direct, vibrating her very bones. She could smell old lubricants, ozone, and something else, something metallic and ancient. This part of the ship was clearly not used by the Cathar. It was older, untouched. She found Zephyr huddled in a small alcove, trembling. "Alara," he whispered, his eyes wide. "The guards, they're looking for me." "Not anymore," Alara said, a quiet determination in her voice. "I opened my cell, the ship. It's helping me. We need to find its core. We need to take full control." Zephyr looked doubtful. "You, a human, control a Cathar dreadnought?" "It's not Cathar," Alara stated, gesturing at the blue lines that pulsed gently on the tunnel walls. They're just squatters. This ship is something else, something older. Zephyr, despite his fear, seemed to trust her. He had seen her open his cell, seen the impossible happen. "Where do we go?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The blue lines," Alara said, "they lead the way." They moved deeper into the ship's belly, a winding maze of conduits and structural supports. The hum grew louder, a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through their entire bodies. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and the subtle, clean smell of pure energy. Alara could feel the ship's immense power all around her. It was alive. They encountered automated maintenance drones, small, multi-limbed machines that scurried along the conduits. They were clearly not Cathar in design. Their movements were fluid, elegant. Alara hummed the lullaby. The drones paused, their optical sensors blinking blue. Then they simply moved aside, creating a clear path for Alara and Zephyr. "The ship is guiding us," Alara whispered, a sense of wonder in her voice. "It's removing obstacles." Zephyr stared, utterly bewildered. "Incredible," he breathed. "It's like it's waiting for you." The tunnel opened into a vast, cavernous chamber. It was filled with a soft, pulsing blue light emanating from a massive, crystal-like structure at its center. This was the core. It hummed with incredible power, a sound that resonated deep within Alara's chest. The air crackled with raw energy. Around the core were various control consoles, ancient, glowing, and clearly alien to Cathar design. Alara approached the central console, drawn by an irresistible force. The surface of the console was smooth, warm to the touch. Holographic symbols, complex and intricate, shimmered above its surface. She placed her hands on the console. The blue lines on the walls of the chamber intensified, pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. The core pulsed brighter, casting shimmering reflections on the metallic floor. A surge of energy, warm and vibrant, flowed into her, making her hair stand on end. She felt a connection deeper than before. Not just to the ship, but to something vast, something ancient. "Ship," she whispered, her voice full of awe, "are you truly sentient?" A gentle chime resonated through the chamber. The holographic symbols above the console rearranged themselves, forming a single clear image, a stylized human figure reaching out a hand. Alara's eyes widened. "It is human technology," she breathed. "Or at least it's designed to interface with humans." Zephyr, standing a respectful distance away, gasped. "This is ancient. The legends speak of the creators, those who seeded the galaxy with life and knowledge. Could this be one of their vessels?" Alara didn't answer. She was lost in the moment, overwhelmed by the sheer implications. She ran her fingers over the console's surface. The holographic symbols flowed and shifted under her touch. She hummed the lullaby, a long, reverent melody. "Ship," she said, her voice clear and strong, "give me full control, show me everything." The core pulsed violently, then settled into a steady, brilliant glow. The symbols on the console changed, becoming simpler, more intuitive. Alara felt a rush of information, not just data but understanding. She knew the ship's systems, its history, its purpose. It was not human. But it was designed by a race that understood the human mind, the human spirit, on a fundamental level. It was built to respond to empathy, to creativity, to the subtle nuances of human vocal expression. It was a vessel for exploration, for learning, for connection. And it had been dormant for millennia, waiting for the right kind of resonance, waiting for a human voice. The Cathar had stumbled upon it, exploited its power source for basic FTL travel, but they could never truly control it. Their crude, rigid commands were like trying to conduct an orchestra with a hammer. The ship had seen countless Cathar come and go, their presence merely an irritation. But Alara's voice, her lullaby, resonated with its core programming. It recognized the potential, the key in her voice. A map of the entire Cathar transport ship appeared on the console, glowing green, and surrounding it, a star map, infinitely vast, detailing thousands of systems. Alara could see their current location, a small red dot in the endless black. She could see Zephyr's homeworld, Xylos, marked by a small, shimmering blue icon. And far, far away, almost beyond the edge of the known Cathar space, was a tiny cluster of yellow dots. Her homeworld, Earth, a new thought formed in her mind. This wasn't just about escape anymore. This was about power, power to help, power to liberate. But first she had to deal with the Cathar. She looked at Zephyr. His small, sad eyes were fixed on the glowing console, a mixture of awe and terror on his face. "We have to be careful," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "They won't give up easily." Zephyr nodded, his forearms wrapped tightly around himself. "What do we do?" Alara touched the console. "First, we need to secure the ship, then we help those who need it." She activated the ship's internal comms, flooding the Cathar channels with a high-pitched, disorienting frequency. Commander Vrak's enraged voice cut through the static. "What is happening? Our communications are jammed. The ship is going rogue." Groth roared. "It's the human. She's done something." Alara smirked. "Now we play their game, but with my rules." She began to systematically shut down Cathar systems, starting with their internal security. Force fields blinked out across the ship. Automated turrets powered down. She used the ship's internal cameras, which now projected onto the console, to track the movements of the Cathar guards. They were in a panic, running aimlessly through the corridors, unable to communicate, unable to coordinate. Some were trying to access manual overrides, but the ship was resisting them, subtly changing console interfaces, making switches unresponsive. Zephyr watched, mesmerized. "You are like a ghost," he whispered. "Moving unseen." Alara focused on the image of Commander Vrak still trapped in the corridor outside her old cell. He was shouting orders, but no one could hear him. "He's trying to regroup his forces," she stated. "We need to separate them, make them vulnerable." She sent a sequence of specific tonal commands through the ship. Internal bulkheads slammed shut, sealing off sections of the ship. Alarms blared in different sectors, drawing guards away from central areas. The Cathar found themselves isolated, cut off from their comrades. Groth, frustrated and enraged, was still trying to cut through the blast doors. He activated a plasma torch. Alara saw it on the console's display. She hummed a short, sharp note. The plasma torch flickered, sputtered, and died. Groth stared at it, bewildered. "By the core, what is this sorcery?" he bellowed. Alara smiled. "No sorcery, Groth, just human ingenuity and a very old friend." She focused on the detention block. There were other prisoners, many of them. Small, non-combatant aliens like Zephyr, caught by the Cathar for various minor infractions, or simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. She brought up their profiles on the console. Merchants, refugees, scientists, not threats, potential allies. "Ship," she commanded, "open all prisoner cells, release them, guide them to a safe zone." The blue lines on the console flowed to the detention block. A series of soft clicks resonated through the ship as cell doors slid open. Scared, confused voices began to echo through the ship's comms, now restored by Alara. "We're free," one shouted. "What's happening?" another whispered. Commander Vrak, alerted to the mass prisoner release by the ship's own system logs, was furious. He knew Alara was behind it. "Find that human," he roared, his voice now audible through the ship's general comms, though still distorted. "Bring her to me, dead or alive." Alara merely watched him on the console screen, a calm, almost serene expression on her face. "You can try, Commander," she murmured. "But this ship is no longer yours." Alara guided the freed prisoners to the ship's main hangar bay, a vast area filled with Cathar dropships. She activated the hangar's environmental controls, flooding it with clean, breathable air, adjusting the temperature to be comfortable for a variety of species. Some of the freed prisoners were terrified, others confused, but a few, like a nimble, six-limbed creature named Cathar who was a former pilot, looked around with calculating eyes. They were not Cathar. Cathar, with two small antennae that twitched with awareness, noticed the blue glow on the ship's walls. Alara addressed them through the ship's comms, her voice calm and clear, echoing through the hangar bay. "Attention, all liberated individuals. This is Alara. I have taken control of this vessel. The Cathar still remain, but their command structure is broken. This ship offers you a choice. You can remain here and await rescue, or you can join me. We will use this ship to disrupt Cathar operations and protect those they oppress. Your choice." There was silence in the hangar, then Cathar stepped forward. "What is your plan, human?" he asked, his voice low and cautious. Alara smiled. "My plan is simple, liberty. This ship has resources. It has power. We will use it to create a safe haven, to provide aid, and to fight back against the Cathar where they are weakest." She projected a schematic of the ship's defenses onto a large screen in the hangar bay. "This ship is ancient but formidable. It has shields, powerful weaponry, and advanced cloaking technology, all locked away by the Cathar. But I can access them now. We can be a force for good." A murmur went through the crowd. Some looked skeptical, but others, those who had seen their homes destroyed or their families imprisoned, had a spark of hope in their eyes. Cathar looked at the Cathar dropships. "Can you launch these?" he asked. Alara nodded. "I can. But we will need a crew, pilots, engineers, medics, anyone with skills to contribute." Slowly, a few more prisoners stepped forward. A doctor, a former agricultural expert, a merchant who knew trade routes. They were not soldiers, but they were survivors, and they had a reason to fight. Zephyr, emboldened, stood beside Alara. I will help too, he chirped. I know some medical knowledge. Meanwhile, Commander Vrak, realizing the gravity of the situation, had managed to rally a small contingent of his most loyal guards. They were attempting to storm the core chamber. Alara saw them on the console display, moving methodically using their comms on a secure, encrypted channel. They're adapting, she noted. They're coming for us. She knew she couldn't stay in the core chamber indefinitely. She needed to move to establish a command center where she could direct the ship and coordinate her new crew. She instructed Zephyr to remain in the core chamber, using the ship's systems to lock it down and create a last line of defense. If they get past me, Zephyr, you initiate Lockdown Protocol 7. That will seal the core for at least 48 cycles. Buy us time. Zephyr nodded, trembling but determined. I understand, Alara. Alara then used the ship's internal transport system, a series of gravlifts and silent automated carts, to reach the main bridge. The Cathar had used it as a crude command center, installing their own clunky, inefficient systems over the ship's ancient controls. The blue lines of the ship's true circuitry pulsed faintly beneath the Cathar overlays. She hummed the lullaby, a determined melody, and focused on the Cathar bridge systems. Ship, purge alien systems. Restore primary bridge functions. With a series of loud, sparking cracks, the Cathar consoles fried. Smoke billowed from their circuits. The ship's own elegant controls rose from beneath them, glowing with the familiar blue light. A main view screen, vast and clear, flickered to life, showing the endless stars. Alara settled into the command chair. It molded itself perfectly to her form as if waiting for her. She felt an incredible surge of power, a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. This was her ship now. Commander Vrak and his contingent finally reached the core chamber, only to find the access doors sealed, humming with an unfamiliar energy. Locked out, Groth snarled, pounding on the door. The human must be controlling it from another section. Vrak's 4 eyes narrowed. The bridge, she must have gone to the bridge. All units reroute to the main bridge. Take the human alive if possible, I want answers. Alara watched them on the main view screen, a small red dot moving purposefully towards her. They're coming, she stated, her voice calm. She activated the ship's internal defenses not for killing but for disabling. She focused on the ship's long-range sensors. Scan for Cathar fleets. Identify their primary supply routes and military installations. The ship responded instantly, a torrent of data flowing across the holographic displays on her new console. A vast network of Cathar operations lit up the star map. She contacted the liberated prisoners in the hangar bay. This is Alara. Commander Vrak and his elite guard are attempting to take the bridge. I need a distraction. Pilots prepare the Cathar dropships for launch. Engineers arm them with their non-lethal suppression rounds. We will not kill, but we will make a point. Catar's voice crackled over the comms. Understood, Alara. We are ready. As Vrak and his forces approached the bridge, the hangar bay doors hissed open. 3 Cathar dropships, surprisingly nimble, streaked out into space. They didn't target Vrak's ship, but instead flew a pattern that disrupted Cathar communications satellites in the nearby system. Vrak's comms, which had just started to stabilize, were cut off again. What in the name of the stars was that? Vrak roared, punching a wall in frustration. Alara watched on the view screen as the dropships piloted by her new allies danced around the system, sowing chaos. This was not a direct confrontation. This was psychological warfare. When Vrak finally reached the bridge, the doors hissed open automatically. He strode in, his stun rod glowing, his 4 eyes fixed on Alara in the command chair. Human, he snarled. You have no idea what you have done. You have declared war on the Cathar Empire. Alara met his gaze, unafraid. I have not declared war, Commander. I have declared freedom. This ship is no longer a Cathar vessel. It is a vessel of liberty. She pointed a finger at a console beside her. The ship recognizes my voice. It answers my commands. It rejects yours. Vrak hesitated, his eyes flicking to the glowing blue consoles, then back to Alara. This is impossible, he muttered, his voice losing some of its certainty. This is an inert relic, Alara chuckled softly. It was inert to you, Commander, because you don't speak its language. She hummed the lullaby, a soft, inviting melody. The entire bridge shimmered with blue light. The hum of the ship resonated, a deep, powerful chord. Vrak and his guards staggered, momentarily disoriented by the sheer energy of the ship's response. Surrender, Commander, Alara stated, her voice unwavering. Your forces are scattered, your communications are jammed, your ship is mine. And soon, other Cathar vessels will realize that this ship is no longer responding to their codes. They will think you are compromised. She had already sent a phantom distress signal from the ship, one that mirrored Cathar emergency codes but contained subtle errors. It would confuse and delay any approaching Cathar fleet. Vrak roared in defiance. Never, we will fight to the last. He lunged forward, stun rod raised. Alara calmly pressed a button on the console. A sudden, powerful blast of air erupted from vents in the floor, knocking Vrak and his guards off their feet. They slid across the polished deck plating, tumbling against the far wall. The air was not harmful, just forceful. It was a clear demonstration of her control and the ship's non-lethal intent. Vrak groaned, struggling to stand. He looked at Alara, then at his fallen, dazed guards. He finally understood. This was not a battle he could win with brute force. He was outmatched not by weapons but by an intelligence he couldn't comprehend. He slowly lowered his stun rod. "What do you want?" he rasped, his pride shattered. Alara stood, moving from the command chair to stand before him. "I want peace, Commander. I want the Cathar to stop exploiting innocent worlds. I want them to release their prisoners. I want them to recognize that there are other ways to exist in this galaxy than through conquest." She looked around the bridge, at the ancient blue glow of the consoles, at the star map shimmering with possibilities. "This ship is a vessel of exploration. It will not be used for war, but it will be used for justice." She gave Vrak and his remaining crew a choice. Surrender peacefully, be confined to their quarters until they could be returned to Cathar space, or try to fight and face the full, albeit non-lethal, power of the ship. Vrak, seeing the hopelessness of his situation, begrudgingly chose surrender. His guards, demoralized, followed suit. Within hours, Alara, with the help of her new, diverse crew, had full control of the ship. Cathar, the six-limbed pilot, was teaching other liberated prisoners how to operate the Cathar dropships from the hangar bay. Zephyr, surprisingly capable, was learning to manage the ship's internal systems under Alara's guidance, focusing on the life support and non-combat functions. Alara, meanwhile, was exploring the ship's deeper secrets, guided by the blue lines that pulsed everywhere. She found ancient libraries filled with information about thousands of species, vast databases of forgotten knowledge, even rudimentary fabricators that could create almost anything they needed from raw energy. This ship was not just a transport, it was a self-sustaining mobile city, a beacon of knowledge. She spent days, then weeks, learning the ship's true capabilities. She discovered that the lullaby was just one key. There were other tonal sequences, other vocal commands, each unlocking different functions. Some allowed her to create force fields, others to generate energy fields, and still others to cloak the entire vessel, making it invisible to Cathar sensors. She communicated with the ship's core, not just through voice but through intuition, a flowing conversation of intent and response. The ship, she realized, was a partner, not just a tool. It responded to her compassion, to her desire for order, to her fundamental human drive to improve, to connect, to protect. Her first act was to reroute the ship to Xylos, Zephyr's homeworld. She made contact with the struggling resistance movement there, offering aid, resources, and sanctuary on the ship. Cathar ships patrolling Xylos were bewildered when the massive transport, thought to be under their control, suddenly appeared uncloaked and began beaming down supplies and taking on refugees. They launched attacks, but Alara used the ship's shields and non-lethal energy pulses to disable their weaponry, leaving them adrift but unharmed. She would not descend to their level of brutality. News of the ghost ship, as it became known, spread rapidly through the Cathar Empire and beyond. A Cathar transport, hijacked by a single human, defying their vast military might with cunning and an unknown technology. It sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Cathar, always reliant on overwhelming force, found themselves facing an enemy that they couldn't fight directly, an enemy that used their own ships against them, that disrupted their networks, that liberated their prisoners but never destroyed. It was a new kind of war, a human kind of war. Alara established a thriving community on the ship. The former prisoners, now free citizens, repurposed the vast cargo bays into living quarters, hydroponic farms, and workshops. They shared their skills, their cultures, their stories. It became a sanctuary, a mobile city of diverse species, all united under Alara's leadership, all protected by the ancient ship that listened to a human voice. She became known as the Voice of the Stars, a legend whispered among oppressed peoples, a terror to the Cathar. One cycle, as the ship drifted silently through a nebulae, cloaked from all detection, Alara stood on the bridge, looking out at the swirling colors of cosmic dust. Zephyr approached her, a small, intricate necklace of Xylosian crystals in his 4 hands. "For you, Alara," he chirped. A symbol of gratitude, you brought hope to my people. To all of us. Alara took the necklace, her fingers brushing the cool, smooth crystals. Thank you, Zephyr, she said, a warmth in her voice. But it wasn't just me, it was this ship. And it was all of us together. She looked at the star map, her home system still a distant cluster of yellow dots. She had not forgotten Earth, but her mission had expanded. She was not just a prisoner anymore. She was a guardian. A leader, and she knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. The ship hummed softly beneath her feet, a silent, powerful affirmation. It was ready for whatever came next, and so was she.